first-time home buyers, which in the last year were really so much of the business was first-time home buyers, that's actually decreased for the first time in a while. It was 34% of buyers were first-time home buyers. Now it's down to 26%. And it's actually the lowest amount of first-time home buyers since 1981. And the age went up, right? The average age used to be 30 to 33. It's now 36. Just because people can't afford it, they need to be further on in their career, and while it may be a strategy to focus on first-time home buyers, I don't think that's going to be where the easy transition and sales are right in this coming year. But if we do have somebody who's thinking of buying, we have to figure out what their reasons are, because they may have a pressing reason. And we also need to be conveying that you don't actually need 20% down to buy a house. I know everybody kind of runs the numbers in that way. I have a 26-year-old, oh, no, take that back, 28-year-old, forgetting my kid's age, 28-year-old daughter who just went out last weekend for the first time to start looking at houses. And she's probably a good year away from really being ready to buy financially and whatever. They're living with us right now. But you don't need, and this is what I was trying to educate her about, is that you don't actually need 20% down. A year ago, in reality, you needed 20% down just to get your offer accepted, because sellers were not accepting deals from people with 5 or 10% down when people were putting 20, 30, 40 or all cash and they were paying so much above. But as that demand shifts, the sellers are going to start looking at the buyers who can close. And really, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what they're putting down. If they get the mortgage, the seller's walking away with 100% of their money anyway. So there's going to be more opportunities for us to educate those buyers to look into first-time home buyer programs, to look when a house has been on the market a little bit longer, that seller might be willing to make some concessions. And I'm going to talk about, that's my lead into the mortgage side, that we're going to talk about it in a minute, is about buying down the interest rate and all kinds of things that sellers might start doing more of that we haven't seen in a while. So, oops, there we go. On to mortgages. So now this is kind of like segment 2 here. So the thing that I got this from Linda Avery, who is our trusted mortgage advisor, and I'll share her information again with you. She had spoken live on last week's webinar, but I pulled some of her slides to go over with you. Just going to give you a point in time right now so we have it. This was as of yesterday. The 30-year fixed were averaging 6.9. As you can see, as you drop down to 20 and 15, the rates go down a little bit. The 5/1 adjustables are 5.62. So buyers have some options in here, but these are still pretty high rates when it comes to what it costs people to buy. So with the demands kind of slowing because of the higher rates and houses sitting a little bit longer, there are programs out there and options that, again, I don't, because you guys are not directly working with buyers and sellers, it's not like you need to physically do this yourself, but it's like dinner table conversations, the conversation I had with my daughter. Like, there are other ways to maybe get them in a house that can bridge this gap of like the crazy interest rates right now, where they'll probably be in 2, 3, 4 years. Maybe where people's incomes are going up and maybe getting better deals on the purchase price right now because of this like softening in demand. So there are things that we should be knowledgeable about in case it comes up. All right. So the first thing I really want to talk about are these buy down programs. And if any of you have been in real estate for a while, or even just bought your own house, you could buy down your mortgage with points. Now, sometimes people, don't fully understand what points, but buying down, it's just a method of lowering the interest rates because you're basically prepaying some of the interest upfront so they can lower the interest rate. So it costs, but it doesn't have to be a cost necessarily to the buyer. And that's where we can talk to sellers about doing interest rate buy downs for the buyers, so that instead of maybe lowering the cost of the house, they're paying down more of the points and bringing the interest rate down for the buyers. But there's a couple new things that are out, which again, I've been in real estate for 25 years, but I don't remember some of these programs really being big deals back when the interest rates were higher. Definitely hasn't been a thing since they've been low. but you have the typical permanent buy down, right? So it's like, I'm going to pay 2 points and it's going to lower my interest rate by a half a point. But now there are these things called temporary buy downs. And so it's a buy down that's a little cheaper to buy because it only lasts for a temporary amount of time, but it lowers the interest rate during the first couple of years. But then it turns into basically a fixed rate mortgage. So I'm going to just go over both types real quick. So the permanent buy down is what we all pretty much know, right? I'm going to pay a point of the mortgage. So a point is 1% of the mortgage. So if it's a $400,000 mortgage, a point is $4,000, right? And so you can have 1 point, 2 points, and it lowers your interest rate by 0.25% per point. So if the interest rate was 6.5 and you did 1 point, it'd be 6.25. And if it was 2 points, it would be 6. And these are just all, again, for disclosure, hypothetical numbers. They're even rounded up just, for illustration. They're not down to the penny, but this will give you a rough idea. So that's your typical permanent buy down. Now, a temporary buy down is still a fixed rate mortgage. So it's not an ARM, it's not a 5/1, it's not a 7/1 where it adjusts at the end of the period every year. You're actually at a fixed rate, but you're buying down the interest rate for a certain period of time. And then it kind of steps back up and goes to the initial fixed rate. So this is an example, right? If we were at, I guess, a 6.5% interest rate, you can buy down you can buy down the interest rate for less but you're buying it down a full percentage for just 3/4 of a point for like a one-time buy down. So in year 1, the interest rate is 5.5. In year 2, for the rest of the term, it's at that fixed rate of whatever your initial thing was. So this is called a 1-0 buy down because it buys down the rate for 1%. But there's also, oops, wrong direction, sorry. There is also a 2-1 and a 3-2-1. So this is an example of a 3-2-1. If they buy it down, year 1, they could have 3.5%, year 2, 4.5%, year 3, 5.5%, and then year 4 to the end, it's 6.5%. Now, this is a big number. This is the cost to buy down that type of $400,000 loan is $18,000. But you can make it a seller cost. So instead of that seller being like, I'm going to reduce the sales price $18,000, which doesn't result in an awful lot in a monthly number for your buyer in terms of lowering their monthly number. If they put it towards even a temporary buy down, it could really get a buyer in the house in that year 1, 2, 3, and then they're at a fixed rate for the balance. So they know what they're in for. It's not like a 3-1 ARM where in 3 years it could jump several points and they don't know what it's going to be. This is a fixed rate, but with a temporary buy down. And so it's just a strategy for getting a buyer in, maybe while their income is a little lower, especially when they know it's going to be increased. And it's, again, different than an adjustable rate mortgage. But this just gives you an idea of kind of this strategy. And again, just to make buyers aware, hey, talk to your mortgage lender and see if this is something that might be helpful. You don't need to be able to explain it all, but just say that there's some other programs that might benefit you in terms of getting you in as your income is starting to go up over the years. And at this entry rate, might be a little more helpful. Now, they always qualify them at the fixed rate, but this just gives younger buyers or newer buyers a little more breathing room in their monthly numbers in the beginning. But let's say a house was listed for $500,000. The monthly, principal and interest approximately would be $2,661. And then after the seller paid, let's say, a 6% commission, the seller would net $470. If you look down to here where the seller paid down 2 points, so basically paid down 2 points, it lowers that buyer's monthly payment to $2,528. Oops, sorry, wait. And the seller actually nets more than if they reduced the sales price, let's say, to $475. They're actually going to end up netting more if they put that same amount of money or even less towards points they're going to still net more. So it's just a way to get the sellers to basically pay. I'm not even going to get into all the details of this. I just wanted you to know that this exists. So if you're talking to a new buyer, that you're able to say to them, hey, look into all of these different things. The mortgage scene has kind of changed a little. It's not just fixed rate. It's not just ARM. There's this other concept of a temporary buy down, which is still a fixed rate mortgage, but it lasts for a couple of years and can kind of, again, give some buyers some breathing room.